Yeah, good. Okay, well, thanks for the invitation to come along and have a chat with you about this. It's been a long time getting to this stage, and we've still got a long way to go. But I thought I would just show you that as the sort of the ambition. Hopefully, the field that we've got will look like that. Maybe in just over a year's time, when we get things going. That is actually Ridgedale Farm in Sweden, that's run by a guy called Richard Perkins, who does an awful lot of YouTube videos all about his market garden, what he does, and tips and all the rest of it. So hopefully that's where we'll be. In terms of why are we doing the market garden, 2 or 3 reasons. Climate change being one of them, obviously, that we are concerned about having to ship food across the planet, trying to reduce food miles, but also because it's going to get harder and harder, I think, to get food as it gets harder for people to grow food. I think that a lot of countries are actually going to start hanging on to their food. So if we can start growing our own food closer to the town, it makes a lot of sense. The other reason that I want to do it is because of the amount of chemicals that are on most fruit and veg that you buy in the supermarkets. It makes sense to try and grow things along organic lines. So that'll be the plan, will be to try and move the whole production towards organic-based production. We won't be able to say it's organic initially, but hopefully eventually we'll be able to say that it's organic food that we're producing down there. And it's becoming clearer and clearer that the chemical toxins in the food from the likes of pesticides and herbicides is affecting our guts, and that's creating all sorts of long-term chronic illnesses right across the world. So I think it's important that we start to educate people on why we need to start eating organic food rather than ones that have been sprayed with toxins. Just wondering whether I should move back off, or there's somebody else wanting to get in here. Hang on a second. I thought there was. Yeah, there is. Hang on a second. Admit them. Let me just go back to, I'm not used to doing this, to be honest. Can you still see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the screen.
Not the screen.
Not the screen at the moment, so you have to go back to sharing your screen.
No, that's fine. I'm as long as you can see me and not the screen, I'll just use it as a prompt for myself.
Right.
So the net result of deciding to do this is that we're essentially going to be having what we would class as a regenerative no-dig market garden, hopefully with as many polytunnels as we can get funding on there so that we can control the environment for growing the food. And obviously it's going to be close to the town. When we say regenerative, as Janet will know, we're talking about trying to regenerate the soil and basically leave it alone so that we maintain all the fungi and nematodes and basically all the bacteria in the soil, so that the soil can do its job of getting the nutrients into the food. So that it'll be along those lines, and will essentially be growing in beds of compost. So I'll show you here what I've done with my own garden, which I did last year. If you can see that, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I did with my own garden last year. Basically laid these beds out here with compost that I got from Caledonian Compost in Edinburgh. I didn't actually quite get it deep enough. They reckon we should be planting in about 6 inches of compost. Underneath that, there's sheets of cardboard, and then the pathways are just made with wood chip. So it'll be along those lines that we'll be working on the market garden down the road. I'll stop this share there. Does that mean stop the share now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where are we at? We've spent the last year basically searching for land and visiting similar market gardens across Scotland, just gleaning as much information and advice as we can. So we've been to places like Tomnahar in Comrie. We've been to the East Nuke Market Garden in the East Nuke of Fife, which was actually on Country File a few weeks back. We've been to a market garden on Arran. So a good number of market gardens. Everybody's been really helpful actually in giving us tips and guidance on what we should and shouldn't do. Searching for land, it seemed as if we were banging our head off a brick wall, but we've eventually come across this land on the road down to the golf course on the left-hand side, which is owned by Roy Plenderleith and his two brothers. And he has been very kind in saying that initially he's quite happy for us to try and get it off the ground on about 1.5 acres, which I'll show you a little bit. I'll show you a picture of the land and the map in a minute, just to let you see where it is. And along the way, over that year, we've also been trying to get a suitably experienced farm manager, somebody that we could actually bring in who would have the ability and the enthusiasm to run this as a market garden. And so far, we've had 2 couples and 1 individual girl who've all said that they're interested, and then for various reasons have fallen by the wayside. The last girl that said she was interested has actually gone back to work for Tom Nahar on a full-time basis in Comrie. We've got 1 final chap who presently lives in Peebles, a guy called Adam Skelton, who's been running community gardens over there. They've been growing veg, but not on the scale that we want to do it. So there's going to be a wee bit of training and education required if Adam continues with his interest. The problem being that, I mean, we're trying to do things now, and by the time we've gone through planning and funding applications, we could easily be another year down the road. And the difficulty is not knowing what that person's situation will be in a year's time. So we just have to keep our feelers out, basically. The site, it's off Park Road. I'll let you see if I can share the screen again where it is. Let me share screen. One there. Right, so do you see that okay? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, yep. This here is the road going down to the golf course. That's Broughton Road at the top. This is Green Hills Care Home here. This is the field that we could potentially use, and the strip at the bottom in red is the strip that that Roy's happy to let us use initially. It's not moving on for some reason. That's basically the view from the bottom of the field up to Green Hills.
Okay.
And the strip that we'll be using, this is the gate access here. So the strip of land will run along the bottom of this field. So that fence on the right goes into the session field, which is the common land, and it'll be this strip along the bottom, running along to that far end. There's a little bit of a boggy area in the middle, which he's going to try and put a drain into and sort of try and level this bottom bit. And in terms of a plan, this is basically how we see it initially. We've got some lockable storage here. We've got a wash and pack shed. What happened there? We've got a community building, hopefully. We'll get funding for it. Compost bays at the back. 2 polytunnels here, and then rest would be 22-meter long beds, and we'd have 10 beds in each batch. So plenty of space to get us off the ground, and we'd have a track, a hardcore track running along here, along the bottom of the land. So you're probably aware that we did a survey. How long ago? 2 or 3 months ago now, where we put out leaflets door to door just to try and establish people's view of what we were doing and how much interest there would be. And we also did the online Survey Monkey. Now, the Survey Monkey was a problem because the results, or the replies that we got, essentially were cut off at 40, because we tried to use the free version and didn't understand that it would cut off at 40. So the results that we've got are quite limited, but I can give you an idea of how many we've got. And in a second, I can share screen again. And go to that one. Can you see that? Yeah. Can you see that one?
No.
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
It's a bit
Okay.
small. It's a bit small, but we can see it. Yeah.
Hard to read. Well, I think the key things in it, the column on the left-hand side here is basically looking at how many people might be prepared to actually put lump sums of money in to fund their supply of veg boxes over the year. We had 3 people saying they would put in £500 and one person said 1,500. In terms of people being prepared to pay X amount a month for a veg box, we've got 7 people saying £15 a month, 2 said 20 a month and 1 said 25. Then when it came to volunteers, we had 12 prepared to do ad hoc hours, 1 doing 6 to 8 hours, 5 2 to 4 hours, and 8 1 to 2 hours a week. So what does that add up to? 13, 14, 26 people. And then we had at the bottom here people prepared to give specific or to do specific jobs. So 2 people would help doing cash flow for us, 2 for funding applications, 1 taking notes, 2 who would help to train volunteers, and 6 who were prepared to help to organise work rotas. So that was from the online survey. From the leaflets, we had 3 people prepared to donate £500 a year, 1 for £1,000, 4 people paying 15 a month, 3 paying 20 a month, 7 people prepared to volunteer, and 2 who were prepared to do just general help within the group. So it was quite encouraging there, but we just need to try and get a more comprehensive survey done. So as a couple of you know, we tried to get funding to get the license for a full Survey Monkey, which was rejected. So as it stands just now, it looks like I might be able to either use Edinburgh University's Survey Monkey or possibly one which Community Enterprise have got. So we're hoping to be able to do a better, more comprehensive survey to do the feasibility study. Where have we got to now? Let me see. Okay, so where are we at this point in time in terms of the organisation? We've set up a community interest company called Biggar Food Growing Group, and we've got 3 directors on it and a secretary. So the 3 directors are myself, John Curry, who is was the local pharmacist, you probably know John, Roy Plenderleith himself, who owns the land, and a girl called Sally Argyle, who's volunteered to be the secretary. We've managed to open a bank account with Royal Bank of Scotland, and we're on the verge of trying to get funding, probably through the Wind Farm Extension Fund for a feasibility study. And we've got a chap called Rob Davidson who's done a feasibility study in the past for the Cyrenians out at Kirkliston, and also for another market garden in Edinburgh, which name I've forgotten just now. And so he's offered to do the feasibility study and also potentially be a mentor, so that when we get somebody on board to actually do the job, he's prepared to come on board and sort of guide them in the right direction and give them the right pointers. And then what have I got at the end here? I've got at the end, we're going to try and link on to this year the Dandelion Project. I don't know, are any of you aware of the Dandelion Project? No, let me see if I can.
Yeah, I saw something about this recently. Somebody had circulated something to some mailing group that I was on. Yeah.
Let me see if I can bring it up. Where are we at time-wise? Been 20 minutes.
Yeah, because I'd asked to be put on their mailing list, but then I haven't had anything back from them yet. So.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. Let me see if I can share screen with this one.
Yeah, Rachel McCann says Rob's fantastic, and I lost that comment now.
Oh, she knows Rob. Yeah.
Rob's fantastic, hugely experienced. Well done for getting him involved.
Yeah, good. This is their first page here, where they've got one of these growing pods, which they intend to put here and there around Scotland, growing microgreens, and somehow or other talking about linking music to it. So the idea of the project is essentially to get people to celebrate growing food, and to celebrate by using various artists and sculptors and musicians. So they're going to try and encourage people to think about growing food for themselves, and growing food in unusual places is one of the schemes. So if we go down a bit, let me just see if I can. So grow and share. So the idea of this one was, where are we? So the idea is they want to encourage towns, thousands of people, to plant seeds and plant plugs, free for all events in towns and cities across Scotland, so that everyone can try their hand at growing. Whether you're an experienced grower or a complete beginner, you can be part of Dandelion, from doorsteps and balconies, in plant pots, paint pots, whatever else you can repurpose and reuse, the weirder the better. At the end of the growing season, we invite everyone to cook and share whatever they've grown at their nearest harvest festival. So we're going to try and sort of get on the back of this. We've spoken to both schools just now, and both are keen to get involved. But unfortunately, it's been organised in Scotland by Keep Scotland Beautiful. And today they sent me an email to say that they've allocated it to 12 regional authorities, and South Lanarkshire is not one of them, which is not really what we want to hear. So we're going to have to just encourage the schools to do their own thing. So I'll stop sharing there. So that's basically where we're at. We've had 12 months trying to get the thing off the ground. We're just about ready, hopefully, to get the full feasibility study done. We've got somebody to help us. We've got a potential market gardener manager, but he's going to need a wee bit of nurturing along the way. So I'm open to questions.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
You can.
There's Roger Curtis here.
Okay.
And very interesting what you're doing. Yeah, you know, you had composting there. You're going to develop your own compost, because you might well be able to sell that, because I'm always looking for compost.
Yeah, usually on these sites, the gardeners can't actually produce enough compost to even use themselves. So I think selling it's probably not going to be viable. But the market garden in on Arran that we went to see have actually bought a commercial composter, and they're now taking in garden waste and food waste from various hotels and restaurants over there, and they are actually producing their own compost and could potentially sell it this year. So that's maybe something we could look at further down the road.
Yeah, because at the moment I have to go to Holgate and they do bags of horse manure.
Yeah. We've been very lucky. We reckon we're going to need in excess of at least 50 tons of compost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know Jo McSween from McSween's Haggis. She's got a connection with the guy that runs Caledonian Compost, and he's offered to sell us compost at £14 a ton delivered instead of the normal £22. So we've got a really good discount off them.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in that anyway. The other thing is the polytunnels. I've always, you know, I do gardening myself, and I've always resisted polytunnels because it strikes me as you can't make use of the rain if you've got a polytunnel, or am I wrong?
Well, you can if you collect it.
Yeah, you can put gutters along the side.
Yeah, a lot,
you have to distribute it.
Yeah, a lot of them put a gutter along the edge and collect it, but you're right. I mean, just now it's going to only probably be 2 to start with, but I think as the climate decides to change quite a bit, we're going to have to try and control the climate as much as we can to grow and to extend the growing season. So we'll probably need more and more polytunnels rather than less.
Yeah, I just wondered, it's in some ways that goes against the environment thing with plastic and stuff.
It does, but what else can you do to control the environment?
I don't know. No,
John,
I
it might be
agree.
worth it. Are you thinking of looking into the polycarbonate ones? Because I know certainly polytunnels at Wiston Lodge and some of the places around here end up somewhat destroyed with the winds.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Polycarbonate ones are tough. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think they've got some kind of eco credentials.
Yeah,
And they last longer, basically, because they're tough.
yeah, they are twice the price.
Absolutely.
I think more than twice the price actually, and you're limited on the size that you can build.
Yeah.
But I think it would be very much down to whether the funders will consider it. I've got quotes for them.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the reaction is. I think they're called Keda greenhouses.
That's it, yeah. Just because you're quite open there, aren't you, down the bottom?
It is, yeah, it is. I mean, I think, I don't know if you can remember the plan there. He has a plan to plant some trees to try and provide a bit of protection around the site.
Yep. There's also crabs, I think they're called, which are made in Shetland.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Say again.
I think they're called crabs, crubs.
What's crabs?
They are, instead of a polytunnel, they're kind of sunken down a bit and have side walls.
All right.
Designed for their climate.
Right, okay.
Which is gale force winds a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I gather from people who've got them that they are very sturdy. I'll look out the name for you.
Okay, yeah, always interested to hear.
And they're not necessarily small, different sizes.
I've seen them dug into the ground in the likes of Canada and places like that, but I haven't seen them over here.
So are you going to try and start the growing this year, John?
Highly unlikely, no. I mean, we're way off. I mean, Roy decided that we should go for planning permission. Initially, because it's agricultural, we were just going to put the polytunnels up and try and get the beds in. But there's so much infrastructure that's required. You need to get hardcore in for a road. We need somewhere to pack and wash veg, which you could do in a polytunnel, but it's not ideal. And we want to have this sort of community building as well as a toilet facility for whoever's working down there. So because we're going to have some buildings on it, although they'll just be like a wooden big shed, if you like, he wants to see that planning are happy with it. So we're going to be going for planning.
Great. Yep.
So it depends how long that takes.
Reminds me of toilet facilities. My grandparents, they used their outdoor toilet facilities for growing wonderful potatoes.
Yeah.
That everything went back into the soil.
Yeah, well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I think that's all right if it's liquid waste. I think you have to be a little bit careful about infection control if it's solid waste. But
it didn't seem to matter after the war.
They were tough back then.
Yeah.
But have you, I mean, obviously you've thought a bit about what sort of crops you're going to grow on it, John. Have you got, I mean, potatoes and things, obviously, and leeks and kale and
well, actually not obviously potatoes, because they're a relatively easy crop to get hold of all the time, and they take up a lot of space, and they're not a particularly profitable crop to grow. So potatoes is one that probably wouldn't be included.
Okay.
What we have looked at is one of the difficulties with making this viable is obviously through the winter when you don't have an income coming in, we need to look at what else we can do through the winter. So we've looked at buying in organic fruit and veg from different suppliers. There's a big supplier in Bathgate that supplies organic food. So that's something we could do through the winter. And we've considered things like selling bulbs, selling Christmas trees, selling other plants over the winter period as a way of generating some income to be able to keep a manager in position. So that's going to be one of the key things is generating income through the winter. I've also looked at, I don't know if you've heard of freight farms, which is basically a freight container that's kitted out to grow plants like salad crops with hydroponics. and
Yeah.
you actually buy the container already kitted out.
Yeah, so it's the sort of thing where you have a rack system and you can stack things up within there and have a lighting for each rack, as each shelf on the rack. Or
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
And you can also have fish as well.
Yeah, that's aquaponics.
Yep.
Yeah, which they had down in the Moffat for a short spell.
yeah.
And then,
Moffat can had that, didn't they? Yeah, because they had a wormery. Then worms went to the fish, and then they were selling the fish.
which has all been abandoned now. It's all overgrown. And
Shame, yeah, because Chris Balance, who was leading that, moved up to Argyll, and I think it all fizzled after that.
yeah.
Local crops, I've found runner beans seem to do extremely well, and black currants and gooseberries.
And Jerusalem artichokes do wonderfully.
Oh,
That's
And
something.
the wind.
Yeah, they're a bit of a speciality crop, I suppose, but
Yeah.
they're great winter stew food.
and peas.
We've to get the balance between providing a range of things, but providing ones which are profitable for the organisation. So we'll provide a good range, but trying to be profitable at the same time.
And do you envisage? I mean, I guess you envisage running. If you get a community facility there, running workshops and things for people to teach them how to garden and maybe get ideas to take back to their own gardens.
Yeah, absolutely. Once we're organised and settled, that's a big part of it. You know, to get even school kids along to see what we're doing and just encourage people to do it and encourage other communities, because one of the statistics that I saw was if you were to try and grow your own food and you were basically a vegetarian, how much land would you need to grow enough for a year? And it was 1/10 of an acre per person. So, you know, if we've got a 3,000 population in Biggar, we actually need 300 acres of land kitted out the same way as this 1.5 acres. So it just gives you an idea of, you know, how much land we actually need to use if we were to try and feed everybody in the town. It's massive, and people don't really realise what would be involved if we did try and actually feed everybody, which is obviously not viable just now, but it's something to work towards. Any more questions? I'm going to be heading back to my Dukes of Ute rehearsal. I've had to break away from the rehearsal to come and do this. So,
Oh dear, no.
if there's no more questions, I'll say thank you.
Can I just quickly ask one?
Yeah.
What are hydrophonics?
Hydroponics.
Ponics.
Hydroponics is basically where the plants are fed the perfect level of nutrients and water with a pumped system, and as Janet said, the plants are actually stacked on racks in a controlled environment. So
they don't really have much soil; they're just growing in water.
Right, water, really.
Yeah.
But very controlled.
Yeah. If you want to get a bit more information, go to a site called IGS. I think it stands for Integrated Growing Solutions, which are based up at Dundee University, where they've been experimenting with various systems.
Thank you.
Or go to Freight Farms, which is an American website, and they talk about selling you the complete container already kitted out.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about water. You can collect water, certainly. Is there a water source that you can tap into? Or
Yeah, well,
you still need it?
There's already a supply at the top of the field, but we're going to have to get a new supply in at the bottom.
Right.
So we've got costings for a new supply of water, for an electricity supply, for fencing, for hardcore, and for sheds and polytunnels. So there's an awful lot of infrastructure that's required before we can get it off the ground. And it's very expensive. So yes, we have it in hand.
Yeah.
It's almost like you need a pond.
Yeah, well, a pond is something to be looked at. Actually, the land that extends, that common land that extends beyond, you know, could be sort of tacked on to what we're doing eventually, and looking at sort of community buildings that can bring people together. If you go up to the Pillars of Hercules up at Falkland and have a look at what they've achieved there with got an organic food shop, they've got a campsite, they've got music venues, and make it a real community sort of gathering point. It's fantastic. And that, I think that would be the ambition longer term for me anyway.
Yeah.
Good luck with it.